Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream, and happy Halloween. Hope everybody else has been, you've been trick-or-treating, or you've been out with the kids, I suppose. I don't know whether, is trick-or-treating the thing as an adult? I don't know if it is. It's certainly not in this country. I don't know if it is elsewhere. But anyway, welcome to another Monday night live stream. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. Hope your Monday is going well so far, or your Tuesday for some of you on the other side of the world. Let's have a look and see which fine folks we have in the chat this evening. We've got Tasty Brain Drain in. Good evening to you, mate. Yes, just for information there, the clocks went, what did they do? The clocks went back, didn't they, in the UK at the weekend, so there's a bit of a time difference now. I think the US kind of is in a couple of weeks' time, I think, or a week's time. Super Pumpkin Man, hello to you. Happy Halloween as well. Type 40 Tardis says a spooky hey all. Nice to see you. Yoakum, nice to see you as well, my friend. Zingbo, good evening. Busey says trick or treat. Oh, you're in for a treat tonight, mate. You're in for a treat. No tricks. Christian, hello, mate. Hope you're doing well, sir. Ed's in as well there. Major Tom, good evening. Alex Berry, good evening, Alex. How are you doing, my friend? Coffee and Pistachios, good evening. Tony Howell says hello, my lovelies. Hello to you, sir, as well. Wayne Haywood, good evening as well. Nice to see you. Camo, good morning. Peter Kuma, nice to see you, mate. Long time no speak. Good evening to you. Mighty Dice, hello, mate. How are you? We got Sora Kissing as well. Hello to you. Tisty Brain Drain saying it's this Sunday for the US. I knew it was close. I knew it was after us, but I wasn't sure it was a week or 2 weeks. Luke Pryor, good evening, sir. How are you doing? He says he's done the duty of following his kids around the village as they scrounge for food amongst the residents. Yeah, my son's been out tonight as well. We've got Robin Mankiller. Hello to you. Tabletop Ramble. Good evening as well. Luke Pryor says every Blackjack stream is a treat. You know which side your bread's buttered on, mate. That's for sure. Peter Stockdale. Good evening. Redwell. Hello to you as well. And Double Dip says good evening all. Hope everyone is well. If you are watching at the moment and you've not said hello in the chat, please do say hello. Always nice to see who we've got in the chat tonight. As you will have seen from the thumbnail tonight, we will be showing off everybody's October painting challenge entries, and that's just made me remember that I forgot to write down what November's is, but we'll do it on the fly. We'll find something. And we're also going to be talking about the rise of the wargaming apps. There are a lot of games that have either dedicated apps now, or certainly kind of companion apps that are maybe made by, let's say, a third-party company, shall we say. Normally just interested hobbyists generally. But there are a lot of apps these days, and we're going to be talking about apps in general. Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? You know, are there any games out there that would really could do with an app that don't have one? Are there any games out there that have an app which just confuses things further? We'll be chatting about those tonight. Where are we up to here as he scrolls down? Lucy, good evening, Lucy. Happy Halloween to you. Luke saying mining at the wire, or after it probably. Let's put it this way, mate. You weren't the last. Let's just put it that way. Super Pumpkin Man says I'm so excited for everyone's reaction to my October submission. They will be coming along very soon. We had about 22 submissions, I think it was, this month. So yeah, we'll split it into a couple of halves. We'll probably go through the first half. We'll chat a bit about the topic, and then we'll come through the second half as well. Peter Kuman says, yes, long time, slowly picking back up in the hobby after real life kicked me in the behind. Painted my first mini in months last week. Glad to hear you are on the mend, mate, for whatever life throws at you, mate. I'm glad to see you coming out the other side. Jez Hunt says, ahoy, hoy. Nice to see you, mate, as well. Hope you're doing well. RG, good evening to you as well. He says, I just realised I missed October's showcase. Hope you're all well. I'm not too bad, mate, if I'm honest. Ed saying there, apps that confuse things further certainly describes most of the GW apps, especially the web ones. I'll be perfectly honest, I've used lots of different apps for lots of different games, but not being a massive kind of GW gamer, I've never used. I used the AOS one a long time ago when it first came out, and I want to say it was free for a bit. I don't think it was always a paid for thing. And it was kind of fine as a list builder, but I must admit I've not used the newer stuff with the Warhammer Plus stuff and all of the you know, the additional things and stuff that it has in it. So maybe you folks can enlighten me as to why it's a bit more confusing. Luke says, I'm looking forward to the app discussion. It's certainly a polarizing subject in board gaming and becoming increasingly prevalent. I think the board gaming conversation might be slightly adjacent, shall we say, to this one. However, what I would say is there's a lot of stuff that we're starting to see. Like, as an example, board games that have apps tend to have the app as part of the game, where the apps that we really see for kind of sort of miniatures games or war games, as we want to call them, tend to be more around generally list building, but more, there's more and more stuff coming to them all the time as well. Type 40 Taurus says, fair warning, my submissions were painted while dealing with 102 fever, so they are, mate. I tell you what, mate, there is nothing wrong. You managed to paint something and you submitted it. That's a win in my book. Peter says, yeah, push through everything life throws at you. I celebrated by buying the last 3 Kill Team boxes. Shadow Vault, Into the Dark, and Morok. Good on you, mate. Good on you. Colin Wakeland, good evening to you as well. I hope you're doing well. Jess says, I only did a bit of painting, so nothing in the showcase. End of that job and back in Wall's End. Now, big post-job come-down crash. So making terrain, I can imagine it gets a bit like that, mate, after a bit of being away from home and a busy job. I've actually, so since last Wednesday's live stream, where we did the hobby hangout and I kind of picked up the brushes after about 2 months, I actually did some painting today. I didn't get anything finished to the point where I'd kind of show off on the stream or anything like that, but it was nice to kind of paint for painting's sake, as opposed to painting because I had to paint. So I actually got a little bit of painting done this afternoon. It's kind of on the table in front of me actually, so I might show it off later, but we'll see. Ken Tryu, happy Halloween to you too. Luke says wargaming apps tend to be supplementary rather than necessary. However, in saying that, mate, for some games they are becoming necessary, because some games are kind of, especially in this day of rising costs for materials and stuff, more and more games are doing away with the cards. Some games are doing away with the rule books, and a lot of that stuff comes through like a companion app now. So all part of the discussion tonight. Ed saying the Kill Team web app is horrific. It provides zero useful information and allows you to build completely illegal lists. In that case, mate, it will definitely form part of the conversation. Kevin Gallagher, good evening to you. I hope you're well. Luke saying it's interesting as to what designers are doing with technology in board gaming, and I'm surprised there's not been much migrate into a war gaming somewhere, as there's lots of ways it could. I absolutely agree, mate. I think there is a lot that it could, and we'll come on to when we get to the main topic, but I do wonder whether it is just the like, I almost feel like when it comes to board games, it is seen as a step forward. It's something to try and interest maybe non-board gamers, as in like people who play video games, or people who are so used to using apps in their day-to-day life that actually the idea of learning how to play a game from reading a rule book might be the barrier to stopping them playing more, let's say, more complex board games. And I think when it comes to board games, actually having that kind of app that can drive the game, it won't be for everyone, but actually it might be the thing that brings some people across into board gaming. With tabletop war gaming or miniatures gaming, I wonder. I get the impression they might be a little bit more kind of pushback a bit, shall we say. Where are we there? Jez is saying, get in, that's great news, dude. Thank you very much, mate. Luke saying, War Machine's gone digital, I hear. Is that right? It has, mate. It has gone digital. And yeah, we'll get onto that as well. Gladstruck says, I love a good app implemented board game like Forgotten Waters. Hello, Gladstruck, by the way. I think there are some games, like Imperial Assault, which is the Star Wars kind of dungeon crawler, which was one of the first ones that had that app integrated. I think, is it Mansions of Madness, I think, has an app integrated as well. There's obviously newer games as well, like the Descent, the latest Descent edition. I forget what it's called now, but I forget what it's called. I want to say like, no, I'm not even going to guess, but it's the Descent one that has the app with it as well. If anybody's been keeping an eye on the I want to say Warcrow as well, the Corvus Belly game, the fantasy game that's on Kickstarter at the moment, that as well is driven by an app. So it is happening more and more now. But yeah, there's an element of it. It has to be very well implemented. And I think the days of having very sort of clunky looking, almost spreadsheets, which is what a lot of apps for war games used to be, like, yeah, there's a bit of pressure now for things to look pretty good. Lucian, in games like Frostgrave, you could add in so much narrative and story via an app, or solo games such as Rangers or Shadowdeep. It could basically be the opponent. I'm surprised. Well, I was going to say I'm surprised we don't see it more in solo games, but then I don't think a lot of companies spend the time or energy to actually go down the route of creating solo elements to games. I mean, there is a cost, there's a time and a cost involved in creating the app, and maybe that's generally been the issue in the past. Yeah, Gladstruck's saying something similar as well. Could be interesting to see a co-op or solo mini game using an app for the AI. Funnily enough, there was somebody created an AI app for Star Wars X-Wing quite some time ago, and it was so that you could play the game solo. Like, Star Wars X-Wing is not a solo game generally. But somebody created an app where you essentially put some details into the app and it told you how to move the enemy ships, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, Luke's in there. When they get it right, it works so well. Chronicles of Crime, Destinies, Mansions of Madness, amongst others. Exactly. Major Tom saying no excuse for keeping rulebooks physical only anymore. Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree we shouldn't have physical rule books only, but by the same stretch, I think it depends upon the game generally, but I'm also not necessarily a fan of digital only. I think what tends to happen if you have digital only is it tends to mean that the sales of the book don't become a thing, and therefore investing in things like nice artwork and investing in things like lore and background and world building is sometimes a little bit overlooked. But for some games, a digital rulebook makes perfect sense, and digital only as well. Clyde Dashing, good evening to you. Camo saying the Cosmos app is simple and works, really adds to the atmosphere with its readings. Yeah, the Cosmos app I've used for the Exit games as well, and it works really well. Imperial Assault and Mansions of Madness apps are excellent. They are, yeah, Mr. Tom. Gladstruck says, couldn't do with an app-based rule book to read the rules. Reference is great, but I don't take it in from the digital. I have to agree with you, mate. I'm exactly the same. I've tried. There's something about reading it on like a laptop or a kind of like a landscape-sized screen that doesn't seem to kind of sink in. I feel like it feels like work. There's something like weird about it. It's slightly better if I read it on like an iPad or something like that, where I can turn it into like a portrait mode. But I still generally like to print it out. If it's digital only, I still tend to print it out and end up like flicking backwards and forwards through it, so I can kind of reference stuff. It's never quite this for me personally, and I get it's not the same for everybody, but for me personally, there's always something lost a little bit when it's not a paper copy, and I'm somebody that embraces digital technology and likes kind of gadgets and apps and all that kind of stuff generally, but there is something about reading sinks in better if I'm doing it on paper. Like I sometimes write myself kind of notes as opposed to kind of putting them on my phone as notes, because generally they sink in. The act of kind of writing them down and seeing them written down sometimes helps them sink in better than just kind of typing something into like an app. Let's have a little scroll back here as it starts to jump around. Jez is saying that I'm such a bloody Luddite. I immediately phase out as soon as games mention apps. I can cope with books, even scroll on a cave wall, but apps are a bit far from me. Phones are distracting. There is an element of that, and we'll get onto that when we get into the main conversation as well. There's always loads of sort of comments that crop up when it comes about kind of having phones or tablets on the table when it comes to playing games. Luke's saying, I wonder if there's not a perceived market to spend on the development, which can be extensive and expensive. When someone does it and it works, others will jump in. We'll get onto that, mate. I think we'll get onto that. Mighty Dice is up so well and good, but the good old book doesn't have a battery that runs out mid-game. I think surely those kind of fears now must be, like, I suppose if you're playing all day at a tournament or something, well, generally people have things like battery packs or like have access to kind of some kind of power or something, don't they? Ed says there were a couple of AIs for X-Wing that were excellent. Yeah, I remember those, mate. Lizzie Mini Painting, good evening, says can't beat the smell of a new book. Yeah, but how quickly that disappears. Clark, hello. He said, I generally don't like to deal with electronics when playing a game, but digital books I like. I can print whatever pages I need. We'll come on to it when I go into the main topic. I've got loads to talk about, and I'm touching on some of it now, to be fair. Tizzy Brintrin says, I'm old school, much rather have a physical copy of the rule book, but I realise not everyone's like me, so that's where a company offers the choice. And Clyde says, I can't read rule books on the computer. Enough workers on the computer. Yeah, I need to be away from the screen. Yeah, I'm exactly the same as well, mate. Tony says, I'm not that impressed with the potentially app-driven 1D&D. The game of imagination and learning to interact and feel included for strong neurodiverse and neurotypical player base, I feel. I think there is lots of elements to this, isn't there, when it comes to things like that, especially when it's things like D&D and stuff. There's the eco side of it, the eco-friendly side of not having to print huge tomes of books and having things to be able to be digital. There is the modern day issues we have around kind of manufacturing and shipping things around the world. There's obviously the ability to keep things up to date if things change and be able to like update a digital version rather than kind of having a physical book that's easily out of date very quickly, which we see very, very often for things like GW codexes are a prime example. If anybody's getting involved with the latest Mantic Kings of War book, I keep hearing stories about there's a number of errors in there and misprints and mistypes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think when it comes to that kind of stuff. Clyde Dashing, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. He says physical rule books rule. You are not wrong. Sorry, the text was on the screen behind my camera. I'm trying to look past it to see it. I'm skimming. Tizzy Braintrain says, I'm old school, much rather have a physical copy of the rule book. That's where we were reading, yeah. Clyde says, I can't read rule books on a computer. We've read all this. Let me go back to where we are. Let me dive. Oh, this was it. Ed was saying, digital only rules for licensed games like the various Star Wars games, Marvel or Lord of the Rings are fine by me. You don't need to establish the law. I do agree with you on that, mate. Something like Marvel Crisis Protocol, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, licensed things. The company are not generally creating any bespoke artwork for rule books, or don't really need to. It's either kind of already in print as comic books, or it's kind of photographs from films, that kind of stuff. And you don't need to include that background lore in there, which unsurprisingly is why games like Marvel Crisis Protocol and Star Wars don't have physical rule books. Even when you buy the starter boxes, they have like a get started or a learn to play type booklet in there, but they still tell you to go online and get the digital version of the rules. And one element of this is because whenever anything changes, you are always accessing the most kind of relevant, the most latest up-to-date version. So yeah, I do agree with that. Other games that have a lot of rules, things like Kings of War, for example, which has all of the army lists and everything else. I generally, let me just get my leg out there, trapped on the end of my desk. I generally do like to have that as a physical book. And I think selling that book allows them to invest some money into things like nice artwork, invest money into things like world building. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that one, Ed. Jess is saying, I was intrigued by the Oathsworn Into the Deep Wood game that had an app with James Cosmo of Game of Thrones fame. Excuse me, I've just had a cup of coffee and it's really riffing on me. Narrating it set and looked cool. I think, yeah, definitely if you investing money into it and stuff, I can see there's definitely an audience for it. Christian sharing the link there for the Patreon. Thank you very much, my friend. End of the month, perfect time to start getting involved in the Patreon. Clyde says $2 for amateurs. Luke says, I prefer a rule book in hand, but absolutely there should be both options. I definitely think that there should be both options. And again, we're kind of covering this. We'll just chat it through as we go. I'm sure I'll repeat myself later, but then the audience will probably have changed at some point as well. But I think when it comes to digital rule books, like in this day and age, the physical rule book is in digital format somewhere. The company has it because they will send a file to the printers to print it off. So the digital format of that rule book exists already. So I think having digital rules, especially when games have multiple books, I think is a good idea. I think that we start to get into that question is that when we start talking about digital rules, people instantly start to think, well, they're just a digital file. I'm not paying big chunks of money for it. Like they're not having to pay to print it. They're not having to pay to kind of get it bound and get it shipped around and all that kind of stuff. People instantly think digital stuff should be kind of either very, very cheap or free. I think people forget that a bulk of the cost of stuff is in the time and the time of somebody to write the rules for that game and all of the testing that goes into it. Somebody goes into kind of doing all the army balancing and all that kind of stuff and the play testing, and the less is said about how much that happens, the better. The artwork, the world building, all that kind of stuff, the layout. So yeah, there's more to it than that. It's just we do live in a world where this is the same argument we get when we start talking about 3D kind of STL files. People who say companies should sell STL files because then like miniatures will be super cheap, kind of forget there is a big chunk of money that still goes into kind of sculpting and sort of developing the art direction for those things. And then there's people who say, well, but then your local friendly gaming store could just print them out and, it would save kind of distribution, which is also true. But then people forget that by the time that friendly local gaming store employs somebody to be sitting at multiple 3D printers, if it's going to be profitable, to keep kind of like loading them up with everybody's orders, all of a sudden the price between you printing it yourself at home and just paying for a file and not thinking about your time and not thinking about the resin and not thinking about the energy costs and the processing time and the processing costs and the IPA and all the other kind of stuff. You forget about all that. That's all got to be paid for as well. And what you tend to find is you go into like a local shop and then printing off an STL for you. If they are kind of pricing it up correctly to make sure that they're at least making some kind of profit out of it, then they're not that. They don't end up being that differently priced in the grand scheme of things. Yes, they might be slightly cheaper because there's going to be some savings in terms of kind of shipping costs and things, but it's not as huge as you would think. Tony says the one D&D is a negative thing for the neurodiverse committee who need that social connection and not to become so invested in the app that they forget how to interact. I get that, mate. I do get that. And I guess it's that balance from a business perspective as well, isn't it? Of making things accessible, but then also catering to, and it sounds callous, but catering to the biggest markets as well, I think. I think as long as they have both options, then I think that's obviously the best of both worlds in that respect. Mighty Dice says the new Hero Quest has an app that's quite good for solo play, or if you don't have a DM, it can be quite clunky, but it works, which I guess is all that matters. The clunky bit is the bit that gets me, mate. I mean, in this day and age, like, it's not like apps are new. Apps have been around for quite some time. If an app gets to market now for a game and it's a bit clunky, that's generally a sign of a lack of investment or a lack of time given to the developers, I would suggest. Peter saying for home, I want the book, but to take with me, I'm fine with an app. I guess at the point when you're going to a game store, you're going to a tournament, that kind of thing, the assumption is you will know the game sort of relatively well to the point where you're not using the book, you're referencing the book, or you're kind of You know, you're just using it to look up the odd kind of rule interaction that doesn't happen very often. And I think what happens is with even things with like list building, when people build their lists on an app, even then they generally kind of print them off so that they're not relying upon their phone being charged. It's easy to show their opponent rather than passing phones around and all of that kind of stuff. Northern Realms says, now then, nice to see you. It says it's all about living rule books. There is an element of that. And there is far too much. Like, in the same way that video games rely upon day one patches now, it's almost like we do the same thing these days with rule books. Like years ago, if there was a mistake in a rule book, there was just a mistake in a rule book kind of thing. That's how it was. You might sometimes get a little bit of information to say, oh, like there's a bit of a misprint or something like that. These days, it feels like it happens a lot, and it's almost like it's become acceptable for books to go out with, let's say, multiple errors, because the odd error is inevitable. Like, you know, there's a lot of words in a book. You know, it's inevitable there will sometimes be an error. But when there are multiple errors, things missing completely, it's almost like folks have become like, oh, well, it's fine. There'll be an FAQ. There'll be an errata document soon. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. And that, to me, feels lazy, shall we say. It feels lazy. I'd like to think that some of the glaring stuff that goes through some of these books should be picked up very quickly. Northern Realms is saying, I hope you aren't suggesting that GW playtest. I'm suggesting that some companies playtest their games, other companies maybe not quite so much. I'll leave it to you to decide which ones I'm talking about. Evening old George, how are you doing, my friend? Gladstruck says, I'd like to see a forces list like Mantic have that gets updated as nerfs and buffs for and then FAQ for the rules drafts. Mantic tend to update theirs on an annual basis unless there's something glaringly obvious, and there are a lot of other games that have done that as well. It's not just Mantic. Like, for example, sort of War Machine back in the day used to have their annual kind of steamroller update, which would come out and that it would kind of tweak things. Malifaux quite often do it like on an annual basis. They will do tweaks and things. So it's not just a Mantic thing, to be fair. Tony says, someone created this stuff. If they're not being paid to do it, there's no incentive. Exactly, mate, yeah. And I think the industry that we have relies a lot upon the passion of people to do things on the cheap. And I'm not necessarily a huge kind of fan of that. Clyde says, same with all media. First is more important than accurate or correct. Yeah, and I think the more and more we kind of become a digital world, the more and more we accept that now. Like, I saw something I was watching on YouTube the other day about the latest Call of Duty game. So Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 just been released. And what it said was, if you buy the physical disc version, there's only something like a 74 megabyte file on the disc. And you still have to download like 100 gigabytes of the actual game. It's almost just like a password on a disc kind of thing. The days of them actually putting the game on the disc anymore are long gone, and this has just become that acceptance that everybody has access to internet, everybody has access to fast internet as well, and that everybody's quite happy to do updates on the fly kind of thing. Yeah, Northern Realms are saying it includes the big balance patches too. Yeah, I think the big balance patches as well is something else that is very much competitive gaming drives that kind of those big balance updates on a frequent basis, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's always a good thing. I think it's fine to try and balance things out, but when it's happening too often, then it's not even just a case of like kind of like moving with the meta and stuff. It's just a case of constantly tweaking it just to confuse people, almost to give people the illusion that the game is balanced. Because if they'd balanced it, They wouldn't need to do it again. But what happens is they basically they shift the direction one way, and then people get used to that and exploit it. So then they shift the direction another way, and this constant move and rebalancing or kind of point updates and things is less about balance, and it's more about just shaping the direction of the game sometimes. That's why some smaller companies basically never really do it. It's just it's not worth the time and hassle to kind of to constantly keep shifting that direction of the game. Ed saying books have always gone out full of errors. Yeah, see page XX, exactly, mate. What's new is the visibility. Is it the visibility? I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's less about visibility and it's more about the fact that, like, let's take GW stuff for example. It's more about the fact is that I think people almost expect perfection and want to shout that kind of stuff out, where in the past I guess people just overlooked it a little bit. Coffee and Pistachios are saying I build lists in the Infinity app, but then I write them out. Excuse me, my phone screen is just too small for convenience. Yeah, there is that as well. It's another reason why I'm a bit kind of on the fence when it comes to apps and stuff. And I'll have my proper little rant later on, kind of thing, so I can clip it out. But yeah, I have mixed feelings when it comes to apps. I'll be perfectly honest. Tabletop Rumble saying my only concern is if a game is too dependent on the tech and the company folds or decides not to support the game anymore, then the game can become useless. I've not seen that happen yet. That's not to say it hasn't happened. It's just not something I'm aware of. But it is a very, very valid concern. Northern Realm says I need to finish watching your TT Combat paint review. What's the TLDR? TLDR is I was quite impressed with them. I've been using them again today actually to paint some minis. Whites were really nice. The yellows were really nice. The reds were really nice. Metallics I was very impressed with. I liked the dropper bottles. The paints were really kind of very smooth when they went on. Had a nice sort of like pigment content. A nice opacity, shall we say. So I really liked the paints. My cons, if you like, or my downsides to it is if you already have loads of paints, they don't do anything other paints don't do. Like they are nice and they have some and they cover nice and they paint nice. But I wouldn't suggest ditching your paint range and going and replacing them with a load of TT Combat ones. In the same way, I wouldn't suggest you ditch all of your paints and go and replace them with any brand of stuff. I think the paint market is very, very saturated. Excuse the pun. Very, very saturated at the moment. There are lots and lots of companies that are bringing out their own paint ranges. And whilst I think these are excellent, and I think the price of them on the Kickstarter is very good, at the end of the day, they're just paint. They're not doing anything really in a grand way that other paints aren't doing as well. So you pays your money, it takes your choice. If you fancy a full paint range for not a lot of money, in real terms, you could do a lot worse than buy them, I think is the short answer. George says, no names, but you know the game companion book that came out with the C page XX in every page of the hardback. I don't know that one, actually. I don't. Luke says, I can see someone big like GW having an app that you pay monthly for, and it has all of the rules, living rule books, and an army builder all built in. Surely a $5 a month GW players would lap it up. It already exists, mate, for GW, to be fair. It's part of the Warhammer Plus subscription, I believe. And if you buy a codex, you get the digital version of the codex in the app as well. I'm not sure if the rule book's on there as well. But they have like army builders and list builders and stuff like that in there already. And then obviously, like as we know, like Mantic are currently releasing an app as well, which is going to have the rule book in there. It's going to have all of their army lists in there, the army builder. It's going to have some like math hammer type stuff in it. We'll talk about that later. Makes my skin crawl. It's going to have some lore and background and stuff and other bits and pieces in there as well. And again, they want you to pay for that. Sort of contrast that, or compare and contrast that with the free War Machine app. I think you have to pay for the War Machine app if you want the lore in the background. But to play the game, the app is free. The Infinity app is free and is fantastic. The Malifaux app is free and is fantastic. So I'm sometimes a little bit concerned when companies start charging you for the apps as well, but we'll get onto that later. Type 40 TARDIS says War Cradle updates their army list for dystopian wars pretty regularly, not just stat adjustments, but even layout changes suggested by the player base. They do, mate, and I'll be honest, I hate it. One of the issues I have when it comes to War Cradle games is that they don't stay still long enough to get your head around them. Like, I tried to play Dystopian Wars when they sent me out the first ever 2-player starter set, and in the time it took me to print off what they call the Orbats and stuff, and because I like a paper version of it, I printed all that stuff off. I kind of tried to work my way through the rules. By the time I'd done that, it had all changed, and I've experienced that before for Wild West Exodus as well, and it is still happening for Dystopian Wars, where things are constantly changing. I always feel like that their War Cradle games are never in a stable place. That they're always ever changing, and a lot of the player base loves that, and they like the fact that War Cradle reacts and updates things quite quickly on the website, because they don't have an app, they just have a website. But for me personally, I just like things to at least stay still for a while so you can get your head around it. Not feel that you have to look at the rules every time you play to see if anything's changed. Because the other side of it is it's not always easy to see like a change log of what's changed. So you like, I know you could just ignore the fact that there's been changes, but they change their stuff quite often because it's unbalanced. It's not like just for the fun of it kind of thing. Gary Jensen says maybe after the AI murders all of us, they can perfect AOS. Coffee and Pistachios staying nut to Northern Realms there. Andy said if he didn't already have a pit range, there you go. I was kind of repeating what I'd said. Clavac says there's been studies on computer skills going down now on children. They can mostly use their phones now for everything. Yeah, and I'm sure schools will start to kind of adjust on that and things like that. And for every negative, there's a positive. I mean, the fact that kids have access to all of that information now. I would say my little one, he's just turned 6 in end of September, and his reading is fantastic, and his reading is fantastic because of things like an iPad and playing games like Minecraft, where he has to read the text on screen, and sort of putting YouTube on and putting subtitles on the bottom of the screen so he reads the words rather than just listening to them and stuff like that. So technology has its downsides, but it has its plus sides as well. Yeah, in Northern Realms they're saying new units get released, making the balance change again. You're not wrong. Ed says, as someone who tests as part of their job and has been involved in player testing, I'm yet to encounter a tabletop company that actually tests. I would not disagree, mate. I worked in product development and in testing and in consumer research and kind of all sorts of things, and I would agree with you. Player testing is not testing. Northern Realms says the hobby's a lot bigger now, and we have content creators that bring light to it. Yeah, you say usually more eloquently, not always, mate. Sometimes just for the clicks. You can print off lists from the Infinity app. You can as well. VGA, good morning, mate. He says it's turned into a cluster. He just popped in to say hi. Whatever it is, mate, I hope everything's all right. Colin Mack, good evening to you as well. VGA is saying he's flying solo this. Oh, of course, yeah, your missus is away, isn't she? You get a pass, mate. Don't worry about it. Northern Realm says you sounded happy with the metallics and the Vader. They were really good, mate, to be honest. I've been using some of the golds today as well, and they were going on lovely, really nice. Double Dip says, speaking of the TT Combat paints, I'll be interested to see the price of the individual paints when they are available in the shops. Yeah, I mean, I've got no idea prices. I guess you could probably work it out from the Kickstarter, because I think they actually give the prices on there and then show how much discount you're getting by buying in the Kickstarter. So I think if you look online, you can tell. Northern Realm says, I love army building apps. Do you know what it is? I'm a big fan of the apps for list building, because if you're trying, if the game is relatively complex when it comes to list building, I think the apps are fantastic for that. It's when they start to creep into stuff outside of the list building that I start to get like the hairs on the back of my neck start standing up a little bit. Where are we up to there? Dan Hughes, hello sir, nice to see you, mate. I hope you're doing well. He says, I don't know if you've covered it, but I really like the GW painting app. I haven't covered it, but I really like the GW painting app as well. I think that a lot of us take painting for granted because we've been painting for a number of years, and we think we know everything, or we think we know enough to not need that kind of stuff. But if you're a young painter, if you're somebody very new to the hobby, I do find that GW have invested a lot of time and money into making those first steps very, very accessible. Yes, there's an ulterior motive. They want you to buy into their hobby and they want you to buy their paint. That's kind of understandable. They're a business, that's what they do. But they have, more than any other company I would suggest, they have made the entry point into the hobby very, very accessible, and the Citadel Paint app is an excellent app actually. Northern Realm says, I spend hours and hours building lists in my spare time just for fun. That's not my idea of fun, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. List building is the stuff I hate. List building almost as much as I hate building models as well. Maybe it's just the construction stuff I don't like, but I get other people do, and I'm not knocking it. Ed saying the core rules are on the Warhammer app, but not the full deal. The army builder is, well, not good. Yeah, I have heard that. As I said before, I'm not a big player of GW games really. Warcry, I never really use an app for anything like that. I find it much easier just to kind of move the cards around and like, yeah, I'll have one of them and count them up kind of thing. I've always found that a bit easier. But yeah, I'm not well versed in the kind of in the 40k or the AOS stuff or anything like that. Northern Realm says the tabletop combat website for Carnival is dire. Yes, I would not disagree with you, mate. It needs a bit of love and care and attention, I would suggest, on that one as well. Christian Shane, they'll probably be comparable to Army Painter or Vallejo in price. They've said at the minute, if you buy them during the Kickstarter, the TT Combat paints are half the price of Vallejo paints. So I would assume they're going to be cheaper in the long run, as opposed to comparable, but not as cheap as they are during the Kickstarter. Where did that one just jumps off the top of my screen there? Where are we up to? Yeah, I found myself now. Yes, George is having a chat there. Northern Realm says, Andy, you'll love Stargrave, then it never changes. Or Frostgrave. Funny enough, I was just talking about Frostgrave today with somebody who was asking me if I would like to play. So who knows? Northern Realm says, feel like what you said comes in here though. Small companies, games never patch, usually makes for a good experience. I think it's there's an element of there's a lot of money and time involved in constantly kind of updating rules and stuff. There's also a lot to be said about there are some games that are definitely not designed to be mega competitive, and some imbalance, shall we say, is not the end of the world. I think there are some games where if something is blatantly kind of like, you know, it's almost game breaking and it's been missed in playtesting, they will update it, especially the smaller companies. But generally, they let a lot of that kind of stuff ride a little bit. Like for example, I played God Tier when I went to the main event and stuff like that, and nothing has changed in God Tier from the day it was made to each subsequent champion that comes out. Whatever's on the cards is on the cards, and there's not been any changes to any of that stuff. And I found that quite interesting, actually, that you can go back and buy something that came out 2 years ago and the cards that come with it are still relevant, because that's it's quite a risk to be including kind of like those kind of cards. We see a lot of card games where things get rotated out because they're a little bit overpowered, or subsequent stuff comes in and sort of breaks the game a little bit because all of a sudden there's a rules interaction that wasn't anticipated 2 years ago when that card first come out. But Steamforged have been really good actually with keeping that game balanced, and all power to them. I hope they continue to do so. Clicks make coins, man. You are not wrong, mate. If only I had less scruples. Tony says he bought some of Duncan's paints to try, the two thin coats paints to try them out. Not used them yet, but they're as expensive as GW paints. I'll keep people updated. This is kind of what I said before, mate, about like there are a lot of paint ranges out there now, and I guess GW kind of set the benchmark, and Vallejo set the benchmark, and Army Painter set the benchmark, and anything that comes out either has to be something fantastic, so like out of this world different, or needs to be cheaper, because otherwise why would you bother, kind of thing. Like a lot of these paint ranges, the new ones, don't have the breadth of choice of paints. They don't have the distribution in local game stores where you can easily pick them up. So there's like, you either need to be better than, or you need to be as good as but cheaper, really. And this is what kind of what I was getting back to with the TT Combat stuff, is like they're good paints. I like them, but they're not groundbreaking. You know, they don't suddenly change the landscape of acrylic paints, kind of thing. So I'm assuming that they're gonna have to be like at the cheaper end. Amorphous Blob says, happy Halloween from the States, mate. Happy Halloween to you too, matey. Kyle Rowan, good evening, mate. How are you doing? I'm surprised you're not playing Vagrant Song in Halloween, mate. Making the most of a fantastic game. Amorphous Blob says, what's your favourite game mechanic? Oh, that's quite interesting. What is my favourite game mechanic? I've probably got 2 or 3 I would suggest. One is I quite like the random drawing out of the bag for activation from bolt action. I think Warlord do that quite well in their games, and they use it in things like Judge Dredd as well. So I quite like that, like random draw activation. I'm a big fan of using a deck of cards in Malifaux over using dice. I think not enough games explore the card mechanic. I love the fact that there's a memory to the deck, and it's not just, you know, if I roll a 6 now, there's like, it doesn't, I can roll a 6 again next time. I can roll a 6 again next time. There's no kind of there's no almost rubber banding, shall we say, as in like, well, you're just rolling 6s all the time if you're on a bit of a hot streak. The card mechanic in Malifaux not only allows you to think, well, I've played loads of low cards here, I'm getting a bit of a rough deal. But then no, oh well, all the high cards are still left in the deck, so I know I've got a kind of high spot coming. But it also allows you to plan things out, and that cheating of fate by playing something from your hand and hanging on to it until you really need something, like some effect to go off or some action to go off. I think that's a fantastic game mechanic that is sorely underused, and I am so surprised more games haven't tried the card deck route. And what was the other one I was going to say? I quite like exploding 6s or exploding 8s when it comes to like cinematic moments in games, when the underdog, sort of the David and Goliath fight, where you're down to your last model up against all odds kind of thing. One of your models is left defending whatever it is you're trying to defend, and all of a sudden you roll that dice, and you roll the 8-sided dice, you get an 8, and that lets you roll another dice and you get an 8, and that lets you roll another dice and you get an 8. Those cinematic moments that come with those kind of swings, maybe not for competitive gaming, but just for fun thematic games, I would say they're probably my 3 favourite kind of mechanics when it comes to games. Phil Wilkinson, happy Halloween to you too, my friend. Double Dip says, I didn't realise they show the discount on the Kickstarter. Yes, they do, mate. Northern Realm says, interesting, Duncan left and Peachy has now too. Yeah, I think Duncan was definitely, he was at a stage where his own personality, shall we say, his own profile had got to the point where he could stand alone on his own. I think Peachy was a bit different. I get the impression Peachy just was ready for a change. I know he's on another YouTube channel now, called The Painting Phase, I think it is. and I quite like the videos, to be fair. But the channel's not huge. It's not like he's it's not like he's gone to this channel with like sort of 100,000 or 200,000 subscribers or something. It feels like he's doing it for the love of doing it, kind of thing, and it's almost a bit of a sideline type thing. So good luck to both of them anyway. Amorphous Blob says, what happened to the Rams helmet? Go Bills. My Rams helmets are still both there, mate, right next to me. We're having a bit of a disaster of a season so far, but I'm sticking with the Rams. Luke says, would you play a war game that went as far as augmented reality, interactive digital, but added to the tabletop game in its physical form? I don't think I would, mate, if I'm perfectly honest. I think when it gets to that point, I think I'd rather just be playing video games. There is something about the tactile nature and the kind of the interaction with your opponent that a tabletop game gives me that I love. And I think the more you start to immerse technology into a tabletop game, the further you move away from that conversation. Like if we're both sitting here with kind of glasses on, looking at like stats and screens and all this kind of stuff, and starts being like Minority Report where we're moving these across and we're sending bombs across there. I think at that point I'm playing a video game at that point. So yeah, I think that's me. Whilst I think technology wise it would be fantastic to see, it probably wouldn't be the game for me personally. Dan says, you heard it here first. Luke Pryor from Game Found reveals they are moving into augmented reality. I did think the same thing. I thought that was a little bit of consumer research going on there. I don't know if I just squashed it. Tony says, believe me, it's comical to see me bickering with an app or autocorrect. I've heard what you're like with an airbrush, mate. I'd hate to see what you're like with an app. Ariel Sanchez, good evening. He says, Green Stuff World dipping inks come in 60ml bottles for a reasonable price. The dipping inks. I don't think I know the dipping inks, mate. Luke says, bag draw is my favourite for activation. Yeah, I do quite like that as well. Northern Realm says the Fate deck is mint. Yeah, absolutely. Love the Fate decks, mate. As I've always said, Malifaux was the first miniatures game I ever really played. I had one sort of test game of 40k and didn't like it at all, and then I discovered Malifaux, that like I'd been painting up loads of GW minis. I like staying at home. I had twins at home, and they'd just been born. I used to have hobbies like riding motorbikes and going to like sports games, going to away days and stuff like that. All of a sudden I had twins, I was staying at home more often, I needed a hobby, and I started painting miniatures. I saw some kind of GW stuff in a GW store and decided to paint miniatures. Got to a point where I had a big collection of miniatures and thought, I should probably kind of see about maybe playing a game. This might be quite fun, get out, meet people kind of thing. Took them to a games club where I had my first demo game, absolutely hated it, decided to sell those miniatures, put them on eBay the following day, and just kind of like sold them off and thought, well, I still like painting and stuff, and maybe there's other games. I'll have a look online and see what else there is. And that was when I discovered Malifaux. So I've always kind of always have a soft spot for that kind of Fate deck mechanic. It's a game I love. I will tell everybody to play it, and it's a game I should definitely play more of as well. Luke says, yeah, I'm absolutely with Andy on exploding dice. It lets the little minnow in the Force have its stand-up heroic moments. It's one of those things with like AOS where people used to always talk about that double turn, about like like if you get to go last in one activation and go first in the next turn, it kind of unbalances the game. I quite like the fact that in some games you almost get that weight of like, oh well, your opponent goes now, or your opponent's going to go again. But again, like very much like the Fate deck, there's a memory to that bag, and the kind of the odds of you then having multiple turns is very much in your favor at that point. And I like those kind of statistical swings. I like the way that works. Cal says, not playing tonight, working on new stuff instead. Ooh, exciting. I look forward to hearing more. Tony says, the painting phase, he's in it for the love. Apparently, I'm a master craftsman on scenics. We all know that, mate. Northern Realm says, I played loads of Malifaux, but it died a bit for me because my player group was 75% people who just had the strongest of whatever there was. You could look at a deployment and know if you'd lost. I do wonder whether there are some people who just kind of like, who get like that with certain games. I would suggest it's worth a revisit. Mark 3 or M3E is a different game now to what older versions of Malifaux was. I played a lot in version 1. I didn't play much in version 2, and then I got back into it in version 3. And Northern Realm says that red Joker with your big swinger, chef's kiss. You are not wrong, mate. Right, I'll tell you what, we've had plenty of chatting on there, haven't we? Let's dive in and show off some of the October Challenge minis. So as you all know, the October Challenge, or as you all should know, shall we say, the October Challenge was Halloween theme. So let's start with, as he goes to here, let's start with Mr. Alan Spider-Lord Ward. And I haven't got the emails up as well, so I might not know what all of the models are, but we're going to look at some cool stuff. And we're going to start with some Cursed City minis here. I can't remember the names of the characters, but I do know that these are the kind of the characters that you can play. We have the Stormcast Eternal, the kind of Ogre, and the, what are they called, like kind of, let's just say wizard type thing. But beautiful paint jobs, mate. Love the basing on them, the kind of the mud and the kind of trampled grass. Really nice clean paint jobs. Love the purple, love the kind of the weathering dustiness as well to the bottom of the cloak there as well. And I love the skin tones here on the Ogre. Beautiful work. Some more models as well from Cursed City, these being some of the bad guys. And yeah, beautiful work. Love the skin tone on this. Let's just zoom in a little bit. I love these guys as well. Really nicely done. But the kind of pinky purple hair choice here with the really pale skin is a nice choice. They look fantastico. Some of the skeletons, I was painting some of these on the hobby hangout on Wednesday when I was testing out those TT combat paints. Lovely skeletons, and you're doing a great job on these as well, mate. I love the almost rusty weathered armor as well. It's a nice little touch on that. Mine were quite clean, I seem to remember. The bats and the rats, what can I say about them? Looking awesome. So yes, suitably Halloween themed with some Cursed City stuff. Thank you very much there, Alan. Next up, we have Ben Mitchell, and Ben's been doing some Marvel stuff. The Green Goblin. How can the Green Goblin not be classed as Halloween? Throwing pumpkins. But yeah, some fantastic work there. I like what you've done to the base as well, mate, because I know that's not that's not the usual basing method for these. Colours lovely as well. Really nice bright colour choices. And I love what you've done here as well with Scarlet Witch. Fantastic work. Really, really nice, mate. And then a bit of a rear shot there as well. Nice work on the smoke coming out the back of the glider. The basing looks really nice, buddy. Awesome stuff. Awesome. Next up is Mr. Clyde Dashing himself, and he has been doing I'm trying to think, are these, I want to say these are Malifaux minis, but I'm not entirely certain. I could be wrong. He'll tell me if I'm wrong. I'll have a look in the chat later on as well. Whatever they are, fantastic work. Love the basing on them as well, and I love the way it's kind of blowing up into the actual cloaks and stuff like that. The blood on the teeth and stuff, suitably menacing. Nice bit of shading as well, and beautiful colour choice on these. Yeah, you can see it up close as well. The blood on the mask just looks really sinister, and the eyes are fantastic as well. Really well done, buddy. And I love these. These are really nice. Beautiful work, mate. Let me know in the chat where those minis are from. I'd like to be certain on those ones. Mr. Dan Kennedy, beautiful as always. I think we have lots of little chest bursters going on here. Now, these are obviously for Kings of War, and I'm sure if I look on the email that he sent me, I would imagine they're probably like for a Night Stalker's army or something like that. But yeah, they do look amazing. Love them. There's quite a lot of character. Bearing in mind these things don't have any eyes, there's a hell of a lot of character in those teeth gnashing away there. I like them, mate. They're really cool. And they look suitably. I wouldn't want them coming across the table at me either. Nice work, mate. Love the greens on the basin as well with the bits of rocks and stuff. Love those, buddy. Love those. Gary Jensen. He has been painting this model, and I don't know what this model is. I have no idea, but I really like it. Love the kind of the blood and guts there across the base. Looks very much, you know, like kind of speared onto the end of the onto the claws there as well. Really nice. The skin tones look good as well. I love these highlights. Yeah, I love what you've done there. Sorry, I just got distracted just kind of looking at it. Really nice. Basin's fantastic. Really does fit with the theme as well there as well. Things getting dragged around, and there's a kind of like there's a momentum to the miniature. I quite like that. Nice work. Beautiful, mate. Well done. Next up, Mr. John Binham, and John's been doing some Wild West Exodus miniature. This one is, I forget what it's called, but it's a Wild West Exodus miniature. The I'm going to zoom in on these because I love what he's done on these kind of boils and stuff like that. The color grading from a very dark kind of sort of purpley red there, coming through almost pinks into yellows and into white there, with the browns and stuff. Fantastic work, and the sort of the muscles across the chest here, and the eyes as well. Absolutely beautiful work, mate. Love the kind of the western basin there as well. Beautiful work. Some more skeletons here. I believe these are the Cursed City ones, I believe, or they're certainly kind of like the newer skeletons anyway, from GW. Beautiful color choices. Love the red banner with the kind of turquoisey green robes as well. Very, very nice, and the rust on the armor. Excellent work. This is I forget what the model it is, but it's a Marauder for Firefight. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, it is a Marauder for Firefight. And John's been doing his Marauders with red skins rather than green skin, and I think it looks fantastic. It really does stand out nice, and I love the little bit of kind of pink tufts, giving it that sci-fi feel as well. Awesome work. And then again, this is a Cursed City miniature. I forget what these are called, but they're not ogres, are they? They are, I think they're like ogre zombies or something like that. Nice work anyway, mate. Love the red, the highlights to the red. The fur looks fantastic. Love that kind of almost sort of just rusted, sort of weathered blade as well. Like, it looks really good, mate. Fantastic, mate. Always impressed with your work. Next up, we have Kent Yeomans, and Kent has submitted these pictures, which is a nice kind of a bit of a wizard's tower with some suitably looking scarecrows in there as well. Very Halloween themed. I think there's some close-up shots which we'll see a bit better here. Yeah, so we've got some kind of pumpkin man scarecrow here. These ones look a little bit more sinister with the bags over the head as well, and this one with a hat looks very much more kind of, what am I thinking? Wizard of Oz scarecrow. I like those. Nice work. Really, really good work stuff, mate. Love them. Like the basin as well. Little bits of flowers and tufts of grass. That yellow looks nice as well on that like kind of Hessian sack. And here we see the wizard's tower a bit more with the kind of the ruined building at the bottom. Beautiful work, and it looks like, I'm assuming that this is 3D printed as well, which is quite nice. Awesome work, mate. Love that. Thank you very much for the submission. Marcus Snyder. Marcus, I think Marcus wins the internet today. I don't have my phone's on charge over there, so I don't have the details. But this is something I remember in these emails. He was saying this is something that he's been wanting to do for quite a while, and Marcus wins the internet today, and especially for Halloween as well. So he's got this Nosferatu kind of diorama as well, and it at first I thought he took black and white pictures, but he hasn't, as you can see from the red writing at the front here. He has painted this in black and white and greys, and it looks fantastic. From the leaves on the cobbled streets, the woman coming out of the house, and then you can see obviously this creature here from the side. It looks amazing. I really, really like the work he's done. But some of these photographs are so atmospheric. Like it's giving me those kind of like, you know, the clips from The Exorcist and stuff like that. I can hear that Exorcist music playing in the background. They look amazing. Really, really good. You can see the beast here as well. Nosferatu himself kind of hanging from the tree, ready to leap. Really, really does look good. Love the shading here as well with the different greys and stuff. Really like it. I also forgot as well, yeah, that the street lights actually light up as well, which really does set it off. And there's been some fantastic atmospheric photographs. Yeah, absolutely love these, mate. These are amazing. That one as well, just kind of lighting up that creature a little bit more. But looks awesome. Very, very Halloween, my friend. And you definitely, you get the big BlackJack stamp of approval for hitting the Halloween theme today, mate. Newbie Dice, Paige. And Paige has been working on these as well. He's got quite a lot of photographs. So we've got some Harlequins here. And what I love about them is the cards on the bases. Really, really nice. Love the little miniature playing cards in there. Some lovely colours. Nice crosswork on the or what's it called again? It's got a name, hasn't it? That like Harlequin check pattern, I guess. But yeah, I love the colour choices. Those kind of the blues, the purples, the whites, a little bit of gold and red. Really does hang together nicely, and the basin really does set the whole thing off. Very, very impressive, mate. I love those. Nice work. You see a bit of a close up there as well. Even in the background here as well, little bits of kind of torn cards and stuff stuck into the basin, into the effects. Beautiful work, mate. Well done, buddy. Well done. Stephen Hallowich. So these are from Don't Look Back, the horror game, and I have no idea what the different characters are called or anything like that. But these are the different miniatures that you get in there. And I remember him saying he was really impressed with the miniatures from this set. So we've got some kind of survivor there with his shotgun. We've got your high school jock there with a baseball bat. Love the colour choices on this as well, mate. Done a cracking job. We've got, is that like the high school nerd, I suppose, with his backpack and his bow tie, his glasses. Looking really good. Nice kind of highlights and stuff on the trousers as well. I was trying to decide whether she had a mobile phone or a pistol in her hand there. But yeah, she's looking good. Nice work. A pink's really nice as well. Stands out fantastic. I'm assuming this is not one of the survivors. I would imagine this is one of the killers. Looking at very much horror movie killer-esque, with the sack over the head, with a very sinister grin in there, and the knife in the hand. And of course, what would a horror film be like without the cheerleader as well, with a megaphone there and they call pom-poms, I believe. I'm not into that kind of cheerleader stuff. I don't really know. I think they're called pom-poms. But nice colour choice as well, mate. And then this looks like kind of the local sheriff or the park ranger coming to try and save the day as well. Beautiful choices, mate. Nice miniatures as well, and good work on them. Thank you for the submission. And last up in this section, but by no means least, Mr. Tony Howell himself. And this is one of the GW vampires. Beautiful work, mate, as always. Nice colours on the basin. Love the highlights to the red on these across the arms there and down the cloaks. And the hair looks fantastic. And the eyes looking suitably creepy as well, mate, with that kind of the pale green colour to them as well. Love your work as always, mate. Fan-bloomin-tastic. So, that's the first section. I've got some more to kind of share with you in a little bit, but we'll get back to the chat and we'll see how they go. Everybody's having a good chat there about different bits and pieces, about the muscle under the torn skins. Fantastic. Luke's saying the subtle verdigris and the rust on the skeletons is great. Yeah. John saying, blimey, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that's what everybody's talking about. The grayscale stuff on the Nosferatu stuff looked really, really good. It's Northern Realm saying that's Belter. I do love Belter as a word, mate. People saying they love the Harlequins and stuff, and they've all been incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that like these challenges are never about who paints the best. It's about challenging you to paint something. It doesn't even have to be to the best of your ability. It's just about motivating you to kind of keep getting the brushes out and keep at it, and maybe like little and often, that kind of thing, and that kind of stuff. But as always, people are at different kind of skill levels and things like that, and different creativity levels as well. I mean, I remember Tony doing his dungeon and stuff like that he did before with the kind of the resin pour in the bottom and stuff, which was absolutely blown me away as well a few months ago. But yeah, that one was a good one. Dice Hand Tabletop Gaming, good evening to you. He says, how are you? I'm very well, thanks for asking. He says, came in late to the game, got hooked with Malifaux. Thanks for showing us games away from the mainstream. And then the message was retracted and away it went. Not a problem. I'm not anti-GW. It's not like I'm kind of like down with GW, they're the bad guys kind of thing. I just think there are some fantastic games out there, and I would love people to be exposed to them, to know that they're out there, and for them to make up their own minds and choose other stuff. I've talked about this before on videos, and the way YouTube algorithm works. And I'm feeling it again at the moment. This always happens if I don't do any kind of GW content for a while, is that your videos almost get like hidden away behind the power of GW, and it's not even a case of people seeing your video and choosing not to watch it. They just never get shown your video. They never get the chance. And this is what happens over a period of time. If I do a GW video, I'll see everything pick back up again, and all of my subsequent videos will start to do quite well. And then over a period of time, it will start to kind of drop down again as YouTube's algorithm goes, well, that's not GW, and that's not GW, and that's not GW. So unfortunately, that's why I rely upon you fine folks in the community to support me in terms of enjoying the alternative stuff, shall we say. There we go. And Dice Hand says, how are you? I got hooked with Malifaux. Thanks for your hint. You are very welcome. Peter says, I actually painted something suitable last week, but didn't send it in. I have pics, though. I'll see about posting to the Facebook group. I'd love to see it, mate. I'd love to see it. Northern Realm says those models were from Malifaux. Rezzers, Gakis. That's what I thought they were, mate. I had in my head, but I was trying to, like... There's so many cool models for Malifaux that I was trying to pinpoint it in my head, thinking, have I seen them before in that Malifaux range, or have I not? Bit of chat going on. Kirai summons, them's the ones. Absolute menaces. You're not wrong, mate. Right, I tell you what we'll do. I will chat now about, if I go to here, stick my laptop screen down a bit. I think what I'll do is I'll do my little kind of, see you later Northern Realms, thanks very much. I'll do my bit chat the camera so we can clip this out about the apps and stuff now as well. And I know we've chatted a little bit, but not really about kind of what I wanted to say mainly. So, hi folks. Tonight I wanted to talk about the rise of apps in wargaming. And you might think, well, apps have been around for a while. Why does he mean the rise of apps? Well, there are a lot of companies now who are starting to have apps for their games. And when I say have apps, I mean they have first-party apps. There have always been things like Battle Scribe and Easy Army and list builders and things like that in the past. And we sometimes have some fan-made apps. But more and more, the gaming companies are starting to have their own dedicated apps for their games. Of course, Warhammer has their own Warhammer Plus app, where you can do list building and other bits and pieces. You can have your codexes in there. We have Malifaux, which has an absolutely fantastic free app, not like the paid for one from GW. They have a free app, and in their app you can do list building. It shows you all of the stats for all of the models that are available, so you can have a look at stuff before you decide whether you want to buy things or not. It also has links to the entire rules for the game. It has all of the different scenarios that you can play in the latest, what they call the Gaining Grounds, which is their like organized play pack that comes out every year. It also has links to all of the news or their blog updates, so any new news that's coming out about Malifaux is in their app. And it also has links to their Breachside broadcast, which is like an audio narration stories, which I listen to them all. I think they're absolutely fantastic. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit biased about this one. You then have games like Infinity, which has had an app for quite some time now, and it has all of the list building stuff in there as well for Infinity. And again, that is a free app. We have X-Wing, which has the app in there as well, and has all of the different ships and all of the different upgrades and things that are in there, which allows you to do your list building. So that more and more there are games that have these apps. The latest one, sorry, before I come on to the latest one, War Machine has always had what they call, is it called War Room? I think it is. They've always had an app for quite some time, but there's a new version just released. I believe it's free, and you're going, if you want to pay for the lore and the background to have all of the stories and stuff, you can do. But I believe that the components that you need to play the game are free, and you can actually, theirs is quite a clever one in terms of the fact that you can link with your opponent's app as well and share your army lists. So like if I'm playing against you, I have my app open, you have your app open, we can link the apps and see what each other's lists are, which I think is quite impressive. And I think you can also mark off your wounds through the app as well. And Mantic as well have just recently announced that they have a companion app, which is essentially going to be like a company-wide type thing. It will cover all of their different games. It will have things like list builders. It will have all of the rules in for their games, which will have some references. There's an element of this which will be free, and there's an element of this which will be a paid kind of subscription model. I'm not as keen on the fact that it's a subscription model. I personally think if we're trying to get people to play games that, I say bigger companies in inverted commas, but if Malifaux with Weird Miniatures, and if Infinity, and if Privateer Press, and all of those companies can all do free apps to get people kind of playing, I'm always a little bit wary about things like paid for apps for that kind of stuff. But I'm sure for some people there's tournament organising type stuff in the Mantic one as well. I'm sure for some people it's probably worth the money. For me personally, for the amount of games I play, it's probably not worth me paying for the stuff. But there are more and more apps coming now, and they are less and less just about list builders. They have other stuff in them. And I kind of have a bit of a love-hate relationship when it comes to apps. I'm not a big fan of reading rules on digital devices. I like to read rules on a physical book and to be able to absorb them that way. Don't ask me why that's the case. I've always been like that, but I do like to read them that way. But I do kind of get the fact that if games have multiple books, then going to an event, going to a tournament, taking it on a digital device is a much easier way to do it. And I guess by the point you're going to events or tournaments, you probably know the rules well enough that you're not having to kind of reference them very often. And if you are, you're probably looking up some kind of spurious rule that you don't come across very often. But it does kind of, is concern the right word? I'm not sure if concern's the right word, but it kind of concerns me how much we are now having more and more of these digital apps coming into games, and some of the things that are in them I'm not necessarily a big fan of. When we're starting to track wounds and track damage, and when games don't have, or games that, let's say games that used to have kind of cards where you would track damage, so things like War Machine for example, which don't have them now, and you're tracking damage in an app, that for me feels like it's very easy to make mistakes with that kind of stuff. It's not easy to see your opponent's cards anymore because they're inside a digital format. I know I was saying before about how it shares the kind of the information backwards and forwards, but it's lots of kind of like swiping backwards and forwards rather than a very quick visual check of kind of things. I'm not overly keen on that kind of stuff. Mantic have got something that's coming in their new companion app called Math Hammer, which allows you to kind of look at the probabilities of what a unit will do damage-wise, let's say, to another unit. So, for example, there's a 40% chance, if you're rolling a 4+ against a certain unit, there's a 40% chance you'll do this much damage. There's a 50% chance you'll do this much damage. That kind of stuff for me is, whilst I know anybody can work that kind of stuff out, most people generally don't. I guess top-level players kind of do. I think as soon as that becomes available information to everybody, it then becomes almost the default information, and people start min-maxing their lists. They start choosing their lists purely by the most efficient. Like, one of the stats that's in that app is like probability of damage per point of the model or something like that. So if you've got like a 10 sort of person troop versus a 20-person regiment. It will break down what the kind of the damage per point is for each unit. And that, for me, almost sucks the fun. And again, it's for me. I know other people will like it. But for me, it sucks the fun out of just playing the game. It drives people into a competitive mindset. It drives people to choose the models that they're going to take based upon their most efficient kind of use of like sort of bang per buck, if you like. And that, for me, kind of, it stops being about the fun kind of thing. So I'm hoping that this new app from Mantic, and because that's going to be available for every one of the games, it doesn't just kind of drive their games down that kind of route. As I said before, this information is available. You can work it out yourself. It's not like it's kind of like all of a sudden it's groundbreaking. It's just that by almost putting it into people's faces, why would you not use that information? And will we just end up with lots and lots of kind of min-maxed lists, which has never really been about the way I kind of play stuff. So I'm always a little bit, like I say, I'm a bit hit and miss when it comes to apps. I think anything that is like an improvement, like what's the phrase I'm looking for? Like it means kind of like an improvement of life kind of situation kind of thing. I don't think that's the right term I'm looking for, but that's what I mean. Basically, if it's anything that's convenient and it just makes things a bit easier, I totally get it. Having quick access to rules and keywords and things like that, having an easy list builder to be able to like sort of build a list and save it, maybe print it off if that's what you want as well. That kind of stuff I'm all for. But as soon as you start to sort of track things in app and control the game with the app, for me that starts to become kind of, it starts to take away a little bit from the tabletop experience, if we like. So for example, the Mantic app has things in there for organizing tournaments, and you can submit your list to the tournament organizer through the app, and you can put your wins and losses in the app, and it will help the tournament organizer to sort of like track the whole thing, which I think is a clever thing. But those kind of things already exist. Things like best coast pairings, things like, what's the one that we use for? We use one for Marvel Crisis Protocol. That's quite common as well. Longshanks, I think we use that one. That's quite common as well. So these kind of things exist. That they're not new stuff. It's just putting them all into one place for kind of one company. So I want to kind of crowdsource, if you like, the information on this. What do you think about apps in games? Is it something you really, really love? Do you like the idea of paying a subscription model for this kind of thing? Do you think you get enough out of them where the value is worth the payment, if you like? Do you prefer to have physical books? What would happen if games went all digital and we didn't have any physical books anymore? There are some games like Star Wars Legion, like Star Wars X-Wing, like Marvel Crisis Protocol, where there are no physical books anymore. And we were chatting about this earlier on, and when it comes to games like Star Wars and games like Marvel, we don't really need any fancy artwork. That's been created in comics and in movie sets and stuff like that. There's photographs of the background. We don't really need the lore and the background. So is it something where if we start going more and more into digital, do the physical sales of books not being there mean that money isn't invested into kind of world building and nice artwork and that kind of stuff? These are all the things I'm kind of like that I'm a bit backwards and forwards on. So I don't think I've really fully formed an opinion yet, but I think there's enough that we can kind of talk about it as a community. So let me know what you think down in the comments or here in the live chat if you're watching this live. And we can have a chat about it. So, folks, what do you think? Like I said before, I'm really torn when it comes to apps. It's if there are things in the app that just make things more convenient, I'm all for it. But I'll be honest. I've mentioned this in a few places. This whole math hammer thing for me, like, I feel like it could be the thing that makes games like Kings of War and games like Dead Zone and games like Firefight, it could be the thing that makes them just full of min-max lists and takes away the I'm taking this list because I like that cool model kind of thing, and all of a sudden it's just about this is the most efficient one. Why would you take anything else? This is just the most efficient model, and we just spam that. We just keep taking that. That'll be fine, and everybody ends up playing the same lists. And honestly, it's unfounded worry, but it worries me. Dice Hand Tabletop saying Malifaux best app. It's absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of the Malifaux app. It looks good. Like, its user interface is fantastic. It always works. You can download it to your phone as well, so you can do it offline. You don't need to be online to use it. It really is good. Tony's saying, as far as I'm concerned, we're here to connect with people who love the hobby, regardless of ability. We're equals, and I love chatting. You could not have summed it up better, mate. That's exactly what this community is all about. Spiderlord says, I prefer physical, but some app helpers can be fun. I don't want the whole thing on the app, to be honest. I think we're maybe in a similar kind of place on that one, mate. Double Dip saying, everyone's entries to the painting challenge are truly inspiring. Don't normally show my painting to people, but I might bite the bullet and send in an entry next month. Please do, mate. We would love to see it. It's all about just kind of... It's about giving you a nudge to complete something and pick up them brushes and just, you know, if you're somebody that doesn't paint very often, or you think you've got no reason to paint stuff, it's like, well, I'm not playing the game, or like I'm not going to an event or anything, or there's no rush. It just gives you like a little kind of a little deadline to work towards. Super Punky Man says, I just prefer physical books, paper and cards. I'm a big fan of cards. Of actually having physical cards in front of me and being able to see the rules, see the abilities right in front of me, see the stats, all that kind of stuff. Any game that has cards, it instantly gets like a bonus tick from me, and it makes me interested in it. Ed says, honestly, I think demystifying the maths behind the system is a good thing. You're leveling the playing field and making it easier for people to understand why things do what they do in game. I get that, mate. But you are instantly also, you're not just demystifying it, you are also making people think about the game in terms of numbers, and not in terms of fun, and not in terms of cool models, and not in terms of just rolling dice. You like, if you're going to build a list, why would you put yourself at a disadvantage intentionally when you have that information in front of you to take a suboptimal kind of unit, if you like, where that stuff not being in your face, it's always been available for you to go and find it. Like there have always been apps out there that would have done that detail for you, if you like. I just find by the company... I think what I find funny about this, mate, is, and I don't disagree with the information being out there, I find by the fact that Mantic are pushing it through their own app now, I find it almost, it's almost like the company is saying, yeah, you min-max it. We want you to just find the most efficient list. And I think when it's done by a third party, it feels like it's kind of, well, somebody else has done that work. It's kind of out there. Like, can you imagine if GW did the same thing on their app, and they started basically telling you which were the most efficient kind of units, purely just like, it would change the way people build lists, wouldn't it? It would change the whole game, and that's what I think is going to happen with some of the Mantic stuff. That it's not as popular as GW stuff, but I think things like Kings of War is quite a competitive game anyway. It can be played casually, but I think it's genuinely quite a competitive game. And I think this kind of stuff will just force some very similar lists, shall we say. Colin says, I can see the point, but then the data allows better game balance if used correctly. GW don't do this at all. Look at the leagues of Brokan. But I'm sure GW do this in the background. They just don't release this information. Like, games... it doesn't necessarily drive balance, because the whole point is, if it was driving balance, then all units would be very similar, if you like, because the balance comes in the way you build lists. So what it will do is it will drive people to pick the most efficient units to build a very similar list. Then that list will just become the kind of the default list. So then that list will get nerfed to allow other things to be taken, because it's boring. So then there will be a new default list. And I just think by having that information in front of people, really like in your face, I just think that's it's what I think anyway. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying anybody else is wrong. It feels like you're pushing the game in a competitive direction by doing it, as opposed to just concentrating on having a fun game and making cool models. Gary says, thanks Andy, you're too kind. My model is a Gorrigan from AOS. I'm using him as a buddy boss in some scenarios at Necromunda. Nice one, mate. Good stuff. Coffee and Pistachio says, I think promoting playing with the models players love should be prioritized over putting resources towards pushing competitive aids. Although I don't play tournament style, so I'm a little biased. I'm kind of like that as well, mate. What I want to see is the competitive people out there, the people that we talked about last week when we said competitive versus casual, the competitive people that are out there, by all means, go and knock yourself out. You do the math hammering, and I hate that term, math hammer, as well. And I really wish Mantic hadn't used the term math hammer. They could have called it anything except the word. It didn't have to have hammer in the title. Anyway, I digress. Those people can go and work all that stuff out, or use the apps that are out there that work all that stuff out for you. My heart is just in having beautiful games with fantastic miniatures that look great on the tabletop. And what I don't want to see is the fact that it's almost a case of, like, if I said to you, like, why would you might how can I phrase this? You might like a certain model, and if I said to you, like, the information is literally right there in the app in front of you, like, you are giving yourself a disadvantage every time you play by using that model. I think by the fact that those numbers are in front of you, you will start to say, well, I shouldn't really take it, as opposed to the fact that those numbers were always out there, but you never went looking for them because your priority was always around kind of, having a kind of like a nice looking game. And I think what you'll find is you'll get people who are not that not when I say not that clever, not that not that kind of numbers minded, if you like, telling you, oh, that model's garbage, you shouldn't take that. This one's much more efficient, or this one's much better. I think you'll start to see those conversations a lot more often. Jez says it's going to be rough for those folks who will use the math hammer thing if that info is suddenly not there. I think so basically what's happened is I forget what the name of the company is it WWS or something like that, basically made this free app which had all of this information in there. What's happened is Mantic have bought that app. They have now employed the guy who made it, and he now works for Mantic, and he is basically developing the app in-house, and it's gone from being a free app to being a subscription model app. So that's what I mean about that information was always there. The problem is the old version that used to be there, the free version, is being closed down now. So I know what you mean. It's going to be rough for those folks who use the math hammer thing if that info is suddenly not there. I guess the difference was it was always there if you wanted it, but it wasn't kind of... There is something, like as I said before, there's something about this being official now that makes it look like Mantic are promoting that kind of play, if that makes sense. And maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's how it feels to me. John says it's also probability, not certainty, and it concerns me that it will lead to stale lists that forget the excitement of the underdog units killing a Titan. Absolutely, John. That's my thing. I can honestly see this driving really, really similar lists, because not only can in the app you can share your list, you can make your lists public, and there has to be an efficient list because you are working out that probability, and it is just probability, as John says there. Because you are working out that probability and it's right there in your face, somebody will work out what the most efficient list is for that army. And yes, some people will still go a little bit more thematic and that kind of stuff. But generally, what you will find is as soon as that list has been worked out, based upon the maths, people will just copy that list. It's human nature. That's what happens in competitive arenas, that you will say, well, it's the most efficient list. Therefore, why would I not take that as the starting point and then work out my game plan from there? And I agree with John. I think it will potentially lead to stale lists. Colin Max says it already does change how GW builds the game. Yeah, it does in the background. I mean, they're looking at tournament results, and they're looking at, I don't think they're necessarily looking at individual units, but they look at armies that have a higher than average win percentage, if you like. So it's already kind of driving the game in the background. The difference is I don't think Mantic does that. I think they tweak their points on a less frequent basis and in a slightly different way, where I think this will probably just, this will end up, it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing points changes happening more often because of it, and because it's all then held in this official digital version. Ed says, people take suboptimal stuff in the full knowledge of what they are doing already. I do it when I'm playing someone who I know isn't as good at the game as me. Yeah, I get that, mate, but then I think you will find that certainly when it comes to competitive events and when it comes to even some non-competitive players, the reason people don't take the most optimal lists is because they don't want to take the time to find it out. They don't want to find out. They don't want to take the time to work it out. They maybe's not sure how to work it out. And that to me is kind of part of, like, it's what makes a good player, and what makes an average player kind of thing. Mork Hornef says, evening all, I actually printed and painted some Halloween models this evening. Should have sent some pics in. You should have done, mate. Stick them in. If you're a member of the Facebook group, we'd still love to see them, mate. Please do share them. Jez says, I've always been this is a cool load of minis army builder, so I have a great time losing with cool army. Yeah, I've never like, I like to do well. I like to win more games than I lose, but I'm no expert when it comes to list build. I don't enjoy the list building stuff. I want folks to have different armies because I think they look cool. That's kind of what I mean. Like, Dice Hand says, I prefer cards because I hate scrolling. Another one of my points, mate. Yeah, absolutely. He said, but it depends on what the app is good for. With campaign games, I think it's quite good when they replace the game master. I agree with stuff where you're tracking things in a campaign, or you're tracking stuff like that. You know, like if your unit or your warband or your model levels up at the end of something, to be able to track it in a campaign and carry it forward. I'm all for that kind of stuff, but it's stuff that happens in game. Like I'm not a huge fan of tracking wounds or like that kind of stuff in an app during a game. It feels like it takes something away when you. I think what will happen is in games where you're tracking wounds and that kind of stuff, you'll just find that two players have got their heads inside a phone, and I think it'll generally slow the game down. Colin says, the balance of kings is why I like it, but people do build for hotness. Look at the undead with soul reavers. But the balance, the thing is with the balance of Kings of War is it's done on a relatively infrequent basis. Like it's done annually, really, unless there's something disastrous. And it's done by a committee of people, shall we say, who look at like basically how things perform over the year. I think the difference with Warhammer is there are a lot more games played, so therefore they can do it more often. Because if Kings of War changed on a more frequent basis, it would be quite knee-jerk on a limited number of games, I would suggest. Zingbo says, I was very late sending in my October challenge models. I spent most of the month working on an October project. Would you be able to approve it? I've got them, mate. You sent them in right at the end of the day, and I managed to still include them, mate. If I haven't showed them yet, it's because they're in the second half, mate. The second half. Let's have a little look. Yes, you're in the second batch of stuff, mate. So I've still got them. I'll be showing them off in a second. Actually, I didn't realize the time. We'll probably go a little bit longer tonight, I think. Mordecai, hello to you as well. It says the answer to my math hammer is a variety of units, e.g. rock, paper, scissors. Then there isn't one single most efficient unit because their max efficiency will be situational. The problem is that there is a... If you work out the units, and one of, like as I said before, one of the metrics in this math hammer thing is about damage per point cost of the model. So based upon what you roll and based upon the average of what you will expect to see, there is a damage per point. The hammer, the higher this is, the better this is. So there will be an optimal list for that particular army. It might not be the optimal list against each different army, or it might not be the most optimal list in the game, but it will be the most optimal list in a points per damage type thing. That's what I mean. That's where we'll start to see, even if it's not right, we'll start to see that drive and decision making, I think. Jess says, I know it's a silly thing, but an app is one more thing between me and feeling I'm one of those little fighting dudes on the table. We all play the same games differently. Yeah, that's it. I mean, as I said before, I'm not right in this. This is just my opinion. I'm just some guy on the internet who gets to... I get to talk a little bit louder than you because I get to say it and then you have to type it all back, and that's frustrating. So it doesn't make my opinion any more valid or any better or anything like that. It certainly doesn't make it right. It's just something for me that, like, anything that drives the game to a point where people are choosing models only on how efficient they are, for me, it's just taking a little bit of fun out of the game. And as I said before, that's just my opinion. Spylord says the efficiency of units never really bothered me. I have to like the way they look. Yeah, me too, mate. But imagine that information is right in your face, and it's right in everybody's face. And it's there for everybody to tell you, oh, don't take that model, it's garbage kind of thing. If you're somebody that plays events or plays even semi-competitively, I defy you to kind of to not start looking at that when you've lost a couple of games and start going, oh, there must be something that's a bit more, like, sort of a bit more hitty than that, shall we say. Super Pokemon says, well, for me, due to my insane good luck or lack thereof during a game, Math Hammer can just die in a fire. I'm a bit like that, mate. Tony says, gaming has reached a point, even tabletop role players, where min-max is the norm. It's now part of what drove me away from gaming and that need to be plugged into the internet. Yeah, min-max for me is just... Yeah, I don't find it fun, mate. I don't find it fun. Ed saying the people who don't know how to figure it out just net listed and complained that the power list didn't work because they didn't understand how they worked. Yeah, maybe, mate, but then it drove them to do different stuff. If it doesn't work for them, then they buy something else. Gary Johnson says, I'm hoping for more of an augmented reality in wargaming. This way the program could be the final word on distances and what wounds are on the model. We chatted briefly about that earlier on, mate. For me, it's probably a step too far for me. I don't think games need to be that. They don't need to be that accurate. If it's really about distances and we're talking fractions of millimeters, for me it's all getting a little bit too serious at that point when that's the thing. Mighty Dice says, bit off topic with apps, but army list wise, Battlefront have scenarios for Team Yankee where they have set forces in a scenario which are thematic and not balanced. I quite like that, mate, to be fair. I like those kind of what they call again, non-balanced stuff. I forget what the word is. Peter says added these pictures of his Hellbrute, the Facebook group. Thank you very much, mate. Colin says, again, I think this might affect the competitive scene, but for casual side, probably still have the original books. The problem comes is when everything is digital and the books become out of date even quicker because it's dead easy to just keep updating that digital format again and again, I think. Mark Watson, hello mate, he said, I built my kingdom for Oathmark before I'd even read the part of the rules that explained what the unit profiles mean. I didn't care how good the units were, I just wanted to field my dream army. And I think there will always be, Clavak, that is the word I was looking for. I think there will always be people who do that. But I think my personal opinion is I think it will affect enough people that we will start to see similar lists appearing. There will still be the people that just want to build thematic lists. There'll still be the people that just want to paint cool models. But I think it could be enough to shift the direction of the game into a very much more competitively focused arena. It's in the people who didn't understand how power lists worked stopped playing full stop rather than buying other stuff. I would suggest that those people were never that... they wanted to be competitive, but were never that competitive, to be fair. I don't think that's necessarily a downside of not understanding how they work. I think that's it's more a case of maybe this is not the thing for you. Maybe that's not the game for you. Like, maybe you've not been playing long enough kind of thing, as opposed to the fact that the list doesn't work for them. I do understand if kind of you build a list to work in a certain way. Maybe I'm miles from the mark here. I just, for me, it's just one more thing that just, it sucks the fun out of it for me personally. Anyway, let's get back to this month's challenge stuff, because we've got a few more to go through. First up, we have Mr. Adam Wozniacki, and he's been painting these things that I have no idea what they are, but they are some kind of pumpkin fighters, which I really like. I love the yellow kind of glow to the eyes and the mouth. I love the wood on the shield, and I'm a big fan of the snow bases as well. And he's given us some shots kind of in different angles. No idea where these models are from, but I do like them, and they are suitably Halloween themed as well, which is never a bad thing, is it, for a Halloween thing? Nice work, mate. Thank you very much for submitting those. Next up, we have Mr. Blair Smith, and again, I have no idea what these models are. I recognise the bases, but I don't know where the models are from, mate. So I apologise, I haven't got my emails handy in front of me, but fantastically painted. I love the purple and the green together. It's got a very, very sci-fi feel, the purple and green with the orange over the shoulders. Really like these, mate. And yeah, I don't know where these models are from, but they're nice. I do like them. These kind of laser guns with them as well. Looking really cool. Nice bit of highlighting on the orange pipe in there across the shoulders too. Really like them, buddy. Thank you very much, Blair. Next up, we have Mr. Chris Zingbo. And again, not familiar with what these models are, but look pretty cool. I love that. Is that kind of color shift paint on the top of there? Very, very kind of sparkly, if not. Looks really good. Some kind of crazy, looks like a goblin with a pumpkin stuck on his head, which I quite like, and is very suitably Halloween-esque. I love the shading to that pumpkin as well. It looks awesome, mate. And then we have, I think this is a Lord of the Rings model. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, I love the highlights that you've done to the capes, mate. The snow on the base looks fantastic. Really does kind of makes the whole thing feel cold. But I love the shading and the highlight, mate. Beautiful work. Thank you very much, buddy. Colin Beale's up next, and Colin's done a few little bits of terrain here. We've got some kind of Halloween witches bubbling brew there. Love the kind of fires nicely kind of painted there as well. Love the swirls and the different kind of the shades of the green in there. Looks awesome, mate. And we've also, again, very Halloween-esque. We've got a coffin here, and again, nice work on the wood grain there, and picking out those bits. Looks awesome, dude. Thank you very much. Next up, we've got Ed, and Ed has been working on some GW vampires. Really nice, mate. We've got some close-ups of each one, so I'll go do them individually. I do love these scenic bases that come with the underworld stuff. But beautiful work on the wings there, mate. Love that kind of pinky shade to the inside and the dark on the outside. The eyes and the kind of the blood around the jowls and stuff looks really nice. And I quite like the pink tinge to the bases as well. It really kind of offsets that with the wings. Looks awesome, mate. Really nice. I don't know what the names of these different ones are. I think, is this the same one that Tony was painting as well, isn't it? Awesome. Nice work on the shading there as well, mate, and the highlights again on the robes. And the pink bases tying them all together there. The eyes as well looking suitably menacing. This dude looks like he's been waiting too long for a pizza, doesn't he? Beautiful work, mate. Again, I love. There's something I really like about painting red. I love painting red and kind of highlighting it up with that kind of orangey red and stuff. But yeah, it looks awesome, mate. The kind of the edge highlighting on the armor here, the bone, the shading on the bone as well, from the kind of darker browny yellow through to the white looks awesome, and the skin tones is really good as well, mate. And yeah, that's beautiful, mate. On the back, really does look good. Love that. Amazing work, mate. Thank you very much for submitting those. Fantastic work. James Carlin is up next, and James Carlin, we'll skip to another one. We'll get a little bit. There we go. That's a bit better. Has it's been painting these. I think are these Vargeists? I think they are from GW. They nicely painted though. Love the kind of the stonework on the bit of terrain there as well. The greeny skin tone, really nicely done as well. Love the kind of bits of rocks and things around the bottom. You can see a bit of a better tone there as well. Nicely done. Love the little splatters of blood as well on the elbows and backs of the feet and stuff. Really nice. You know, you can see the kind of the robes as well coming across. It's probably the best shot of them. Really nice work, mate. Love that. Thank you very much, James. Appreciate you sending them in. John Estel. John's been painting some nightmares for his multi-use rats. These are looking cool, mate. Love the little bits of tufts on the bases and the bits of rocks and stuff. The red and black and silver goes together really nice. And I love that kind of that green mixing in as well. It really kind of stands out. And the blue to the lens there as well. Really nice work, mate. Love seeing the rats on here as well. Those nightmare models are fantastic as well. They're one of my favourite models in that range. Thanks very much, buddy. Mr. Luke Pryor's been painting some Rumble Slam. However, the Rumble Slam models are very Halloween-esque in their thoughts, in their appearance rather. Sorry, as we have some kind of Mexican Day of the Dead skeletons here. Love that model with the we'll go for them in a bit more detail individually here, but I love the color choices on here, mate. Beautifully painted and highlighted as well. The highlighting on the skeleton bones really good too. Love those two little rattling bones there. These two dancers as well. Lovely work on the flowers. The highlighting on the black for the dress as well, and the waistcoat. Really good work, mate. Beautiful color choice. I love the way your red, green, and yellows like tied them all together as well. Really nice. I do love this dude as well. I thought there was another picture of him there. You can see how he's drinking the wine and it's kind of coming out through his ribs and stuff. I do like that. Really cool model. We've got referee here with his dice in his hand and the scythe across his shoulders. Looking really good. Like that, mate. Again, good work on the shading as well and the highlighting. And we've got, looks like we've got another couple of referees. I'm saying referees. I'm just assuming because they got black and white tops on that they must be referees. They could be Newcastle fans, to be fair. We've got the werewolf there and what looks to be... Is this him changing, I think? I assume it must be. I like these two models. Nice work as well, mate, on the skin tones. Looking good. And there they are from the back as well. I love them, mate. Beautiful models. Really nicely done as well. Thank you for entering those. Mordecai has been painting these very suitable pumpkins for Halloween as well. Love these, mate. Again, the kind of the glowing yellows against the orange. Nice shading in with the kind of in the panels of the pumpkins as well. And I love the leaves around there. I love these pumpkins have got little weapons as well. The little pitchfork there as well. Even in the knights look pretty good too, mate. I love the highlights and the shades to those. Really nice, mate. I don't know what those models are from, but they're fantastic. Thank you for entering, Mr. Scott Webster. And I'll be completely honest, I'm not familiar with this model. This could be Malifaux model, I think. But I like it. Really nice. I'll go back and just kind of that's the model in a bit of a creepy background there. But this one just shows it off a little bit more. Love the runes and stuff on the base. The purple and the green comes together really nice as well, mate. Very nice model, nicely painted. Really love that, mate. Nice with the purple on the base as well. Good work. Thank you very much, Scott. And last but not least, we have Mr. Stephen Krebs. And Stephen has been painting up a couple of these ghouls, I think they are. I think they're GW ghouls. Nice colour choices with the red hair there as well. And the purple hair on the one in hand. Blood looks great as well across the face and the mouth and across the axe. Stabbing it in there as well. And some suitably gribbly. I feel like this is from a board game and I can't think what it is. But it's really nicely painted. Love the kind of highlights, the dry brushing to the greens and the purple tentacles and stuff around the mouth is really nicely done, mate. A nice bit of work on the basin. Really nice, mate. So that is the October challenge done and dusted for another month. I now need to come up with something for November that I completely forgot to sort out. Bit of chat there about Rumble Slam saying, is it actually a good game? It is a good game, mate. Tony saying, yeah, Newcastle fans, clearly. Mordecai says, the pumpkins in the nights are free STLs by Dutch Mogul with some customization. Thanks for sharing that, mate. I love them. Suit of Pumpkin Man says, all hail the pumpkin. My little boy dressed up as Jack Skellington for Halloween tonight, and he went with the orange Pumpkin King head as opposed to the white one. Tony saying to Scott, it's fabulous work. It is, mate. Yeah. Smudge, even, mate. How you doing? Clyde saying Ghosts and Malafor Garky girls from Pulp Alley. Excellent. Now I know. And Wayne says great models all. And Clyde says great show. Death May Die. I thought it was from a board game, mate. And Jason, they were great. Nice one, folks. Yes. I enjoyed seeing them this month. Right, November. We need a theme for November. Let me just grab my phone off my charger, and I'll give you a start and end date. My phone was pretty much dead when we started the stream, so I need this. So, the start date for the new challenge is tomorrow, obviously November the 1st, and we will end the challenge, I think, on the 27th of November. So we'll be doing a live stream on Monday the 28th. So you have Mighty Dice says, is going to be another forgotten theme. It's going to have to be something I pull out my backside in the next 30 seconds. So you have from the 1st of November to midnight on the 27th of November. And the theme, I'll tell you what. The theme is going to be, Christian says, how about explosive, keeping with Guy Fawkes theme? Or is that too British? Tony says, let it be fighting fantasy. I tell you what it's going to be. It's my birthday at the end of November. So we're going to say the theme is the gift. Now, that could be something to do with your model might be holding something in its hand, like a present or a gift. It might be that there is some kind of theme to the whole piece about how your model is bringing the gift of death to all its surveyors. It might be that you do a nice little kind of sort of display base for it, something like that. The gift. I'll come up with some coffee and pistachios is saying Movember models with mustaches. It might be a bit, yeah. So the gift, we'll say, right, and you can the gift, the present, the birthday, anything like that. We'll spitball some ideas and we'll find out how to come up with it. Mutations. I think mutations is a good one. The mutations are a gift from something, aren't they, kind of thing. We'll think about it that way. There we go. Smudge says he's just home. He's been playing Halloween themed games called Terror from the Deep. I've played the demo of that, mate, when I was at UK Games Expo a few years ago. Tasty Brain says, what about painting minis that were gifted to you? Even better. That fits in with the theme as well. Something that's being gifted to you. It certainly fits in. The gift of chaos, Peter, that absolutely fits as well. The gift of life, the gift of death, the gift of flight, the gift of fire. Could be anything like that. I'm sure we can theme it. So let's just say whatever you want to paint, I'm sure we'll be able to make it work. But the theme is the gift. Purely just because it's my birthday at the end of the month. So I think on that note, we'll start to wrap things up. But I've had a good night tonight. Thanks very much, folks. Really kept me going, kept me interested. Loads to chat about. I'm still a bit on the fence about the whole app things, but I look forward to seeing what other people think. Anyway, take care, folks. Do we do a hobby hangout this Wednesday? I'm not sure. Let me think about it. I will let you know if we do a hobby hangout this Wednesday. I don't know if I want to do it every week. We might do it every 2 weeks. But I do have a visitor coming on Friday. A certain Mr. Ronnie Renton from Mantic Games is coming here to the studio. He's got some stuff he wants to chat about, so we're going to do a bit of an interview. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, if it goes pretty straightforward, we'll just get the interview up on Friday night and we'll put it straight out. So yes, I look forward to having a bit of a chat with Ronnie this week. I look forward to speaking to you all during the week as well, either on the Patreon or maybe on Facebook. And I will see you all next Monday. So take care, folks. Have a fantastic week, and I'll speak to you soon.